If there were ever a time for a candle in the destruction of this world, this would be it. Using a spark of hope to kindle the flame of love, ignite the light of peace, and feed the flame of justice. We light our chalice today knowing that our hope and our passion are needed to change the world. We all bring different gifts, but we come together today under one roof. And what we do in this time together can make a difference, both to our world and in ourselves. For the new year, just several days old, we begin today, always beginning. This tiny light, a symbol of hope. We light it in gratitude and love. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Brighton Unitarian Church. It's really lovely to have you here, whether you're here in person, wrapped up or snugly. If you're not wrapped up snugly, there's a few blankets at the back. Please just grab one if you need an extra layer, or if you are feeling quite warm and your neighbour needs your coat or scarf, please pass it along. I don't normally do a service in a cardie, and in fact it's my administrator's cardie, so she doesn't normally look at the service online, so she hopefully won't find out. If she does, I owe her an apology. But yeah, keep yourself as snug as you can. And it's really lovely to see so many faces here this morning. Some of those faces I know quite well, and some faces I have yet to meet and to introduce myself. So I'm Jennifer, I'm the minister here at this church. If you're new here today, we offer you and extend you a special welcome. We hope that in this time together, you will find some solace, some quietness, some joy, and some hope, and some tea and cake at the end. So for this hour together, we come to celebrate, to question, to reflect, to give thanks, to refuse to give up, to steady ourselves, keepers of hope, brave builders of this still possible world. So come, let us worship together and sing our first hymn, which is number 18 in the Green Book, We Gather Together. Those new to, for those new to Unitarianism, we've been practicing our faith for over 200 years in this church. Used to the new year, that 2025, that deep breath of going back to work or doing whatever you have to do. I really hope that we continue here for another 200, but keeping it in the moment at least for today and maybe for 2025. We gather today, it's quite an auspicious time. It may seem like a distant memory of the new year now, only nearly 2 weeks ago. The holidays for some of us are over. Some of us are back to work, paying our bills. Those little reminders from the tax office, which I got last week. Don't forget. Those balances from the spending sprees. And of course, the weather. We've all had some challenges this week. The holidays have passed. And some of us may think, oh, it's January, I just want to cuddle up in my blanket, sit on the sofa. And yet, all of you have come out today in this beautiful, chilly but frosty and bright morning. So what is so auspicious about this time of year? Well, the wolf moon is coming. For any of you that were not able to sleep last night and looked outside, it was bright, nearly full. And of course, it brings that new astrological drama too, the first big moon of the year. I don't know much about astrology, so I'm not even going to try to explain it, but apparently something major is going to happen, and the moon is passing Mars, and all sorts of things are going to happen. And then in another week's time, the planets will align. But if there's anybody here that knows about that type of stuff, raise your hand, or at least indicate that we can come and talk to you afterwards. But there is that beauty of a full moon, the first one of the year. And if that wasn't enough, January the 14th marks Mahayana, the new year for Buddhists. As Unitarians, we embrace and learn and question a multitude of different aspects of faith. Some of those are from our ancestry of Christianity, and others are from wider texts, philosophy and science. That always helps to exercise that muscle of our brain to think and to question, to learn more, to open our eyes and to challenge our own beliefs and maybe embrace others. Mahayana is one of the two branches of Buddhism, and it means the great vehicle. I love that translation, that there's something that's guiding and moving people through their faith. So they celebrate on the 14th. They often reflect of the teachings of the Buddha. They honor the Buddha. They have some self-reflection, and they share good wishes. But do they practice hope? We'll have more about that later in the service. But we send all our blessings to the Mahayana Buddhists, both in this congregation. There may be some of you that practice, especially there are groups in Brighton and across the world. We celebrate and we send our blessings to them today. We sing again hymn number 161, which again is in the Green Book, and it's called The Sun of Hope Within. Now, for those of you who are new, you wouldn't know that this is a hymn that we don't usually sing very often, but we don't. So Stuart is going to, are you going to play it through? Play it through for us to get a gist. And just come with an open mind. It really doesn't matter if you sing it wrong or you go up instead of down. We're going to embrace the sun of hope within, because the sun of hope is all around us this morning. So let's give it a go. Our first reading today comes from Emily Dickinson. Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. And sweetest in the gale is heard, and sore must be the storm that could abash the little bird that kept so many warm. I've heard it in the chillest land and on the strangest sea, yet never in extremity hope asked even a crumb of me. Words by Emily Dickinson. And if you haven't quite grabbed it yet, our general theme is about hope. So, as Unitarians, we do spend some of our time in a service in quiet reflection. And for those of you that are new, I'd invite you to invite God into your being, whatever that means for you. That may be something very traditional. It could be nature. It could be something higher. It could be good, could be hope, could be the divine. Or you may have no idea. But in these few minutes of a reflection and guided meditation, I just ask you to sit with something greater than yourself. So do make yourself comfortable. Keep your gloves on, stick your hands in your coats. And just take your space in this church, in this chair. Nothing to do, just to breathe in and out and allow yourself to settle. Feel the breath of life coming into your lungs. And in the knowledge as you breathe out, you give something gracious to the plants and to nature. And I want to invite you to just be with your own thoughts and feelings for a moment. There may be something that you're struggling with, not sure of the pathway or the answer. And I invite you to bring in the light of hope to guide you to an answer, to an acceptance, to be with whatever is causing you that struggle at this time. And I invite you to bring to mind somebody who you know is struggling at this time, whether that's with their health, their life circumstances. They may be grieving. Think of them kindly. and with compassion. And send them that small spark of hope. And we take our focus further afield, out into our community or to the wider world. And we bring to mind a situation in the world whether that's through natural fires or floods, war. And we sit for a moment with that struggle too. And we offer that light, however small, of hope. God of light and love, divine spirit of all that is good, we offer these questions and struggles and prayers of hope for ourselves, for our loved ones, for those that we struggle with, and for the wider world. We keep in mind those near to us in the congregation. Barbara, one of our staff members who is grieving her father. Trisha, who is in hospital at this time. And Stephen, who is recovering from a break in his leg. There are many more that I am probably not aware of, and we hold all of those people in our minds and our hearts. And for those who have lost everything that they own, whether that be through fire or flood or war, as they search through the ashes and the rubble for a glimmer of hope, we offer our prayers and our love. God of light and love, divine Spirit, help us to hold the seemingly devastation and hopelessness in one hand and the infinite hope in another. Amen, and blessed be. With loving kindness, may I be well. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease. May I be whole. It's 100 in the purple book if you wish, and please remain seated. Yeah, we'll start again. Yeah. Be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease. May I be whole. May I be filled with love and kindness. Thank you, everybody. Beautiful. I could hear these harmonies wafting across the church. We come to a time where we ask for your contribution. Your contribution of being here and worshipping with us is probably one of the best things that we could ever hope for in a church. But we also need your spare change, if you have any. So in this following piece of music that Stuart will play, I invite you, if you can, to place something in these little pouches. We have a card reader that takes a payment, which you can do after the service. And in the back of some of your chairs there's a little, what do you call that thing? Thank you, QR code. And that will take you to somewhere to make payment. So if you're able, we graciously accept that. And if you're not, we graciously accept your presence. I think Stuart was slightly worried I'm going to fall off the back. I was slightly worried as well. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. This is not normal either, but we're going to give it a go. I lost the fight with the snow on Wednesday. Many of you were trudging along probably, and I was trudging along, and one moment I was vertical and the next moment I was horizontal. So we're going to do the address part of the service sitting down. See what happens. Hopefully it'll be the same. We must accept finite disappointment, but never lose infinite hope. These were the words that I put out for the service today, and they were spoken by Martin Luther King. He spoke them 2 months before his assassination, and they serve as a real powerful rallying cry for hope in the face of such obstacles. For many of us, we may have been glad to see the back of 2024. I spoke to a few people around New Year, and they said, "We doesn't feel appropriate to say Happy New Year. What is there to be happy about?" In some spiritual traditions, there tends to be a tendency to bypass the first part of that statement. Bypass, we must accept finite disappointment and jump on to but never lose infinite hope. wishing for a brand new shiny tomorrow. For those of us in this church, some of us who may be struggling with things, and certainly many people on the streets of Brighton facing homelessness, destruction by their homes, the pictures of devastation that we've seen on our newsfeed this week, those can lead to feelings of fear and hopelessness. Some of us may have hopes but never see them fulfilled. King had a dream of which he never saw realized in his lifetime. But part of the hope that he walked with was the letting go of the outcome, that it may not ever happen in his lifetime, but he was still prepared to walk the freedom. Schubert never finished his 8th Symphony. Gandhi, after struggling for years of independence, who dreamed of united India, only to see the dream trampled on, which led to the division of India and Pakistan. I will attend a funeral of a very dear friend on Tuesday who died on Boxing Day. He had retired a year previous, dreaming of all the golf courses that he was going to go and play on. He had a long list. His diagnosis, his terminal diagnosis in July, brought many of those hopes and dreams to a finite close. He is one of many. King talked about, and part of these sort of meanderings are from a sermon that he made just before he died. He talked about the Apostle Paul, who had this hope. He wanted to take Christianity into Spain. He had this big dream. It was one of his greatest hopes to travel to the then unknown world where he could spread the gospel. He looked forward to sharing the wonder that he had found. All of his attention was being prepared to share. He never got to Rome in the sense that he hoped. He went there only as a prisoner and not as a free man. He spent his days in a tiny little prison, held captive, of daring to spread his faith. He wasn't able to walk the dusty roads of Spain and died a martyr's death. It sounds like a real tragic story of a shattered dream and blasted hope. Maybe many of us have set out for some distant Spain, metaphorical or physical, some momentous goal, some glorious realization, only to find that maybe we had to settle for much less. We wanting the Spain, but it was something so much smaller. It's like King suggested, accepting the finite disappointment, But how do we never lose infinite hope? What do we do under certain circumstances? For some of us, in those situations, we may have withdrawn, being bitter, holding a resentment of spirit, almost a coldness of heart. I haven't got what I wanted, what I hoped for, so I'm turning away. Some cut themselves off, almost like a cold detachment, a sense of indifference. Or there are those that say, well, everything happens for a reason. It's God's will. Perhaps we can see ourselves in all of those responses. I know that I can, and I hope I'm not alone. So how, in that moment of disappointment, do we maintain infinite hope? Many of us have witnessed the images in America, people losing everything in an instant. I read something, it wasn't somebody who was particularly famous, but had gone back to try to retrieve, and what they said was try to retrieve some fragments of hope from the devastation. And they found a tiny piece of a plate of their grandmother's. It was a tiny little square piece. They found a few prongs of a comb and a glass that had been almost molded into something else because of the heat of the flames. And he explained that in that moment, he had something to cling on to. There was nothing left apart from these tiny little fragments of hope. I'm sure many of us have been in those situations, whether it's through health, financial difficulties, breakups of relationships. Life isn't easy and straightforward. And sometimes we come to church to look for something that will bring us through. The philosopher Mary Zoranzi states that hope is built on belief and faith and the trust that there is a life worth living in uncertain times. Interesting, she is an atheist. So when she talks about belief and faith, it's something very wide, and I offer that to you. Some of us perhaps have come from other faiths in the past where there's this sense of blind optimism. It will all turn out okay in the end. I just need to pray. And yet, that sense of hope without action is very empty. So what then is the answer? This is my grief and I must bear it. The acceptance of what is, and yet clinging to those tiny pieces, those tiny fragments. It's not that spiritual bypassing. It is looking at the ashes of the loss of your life. And how can then I transform it? Like Paul, who ended up in a prison cell, he didn't allow these conditions to overwhelm him. I have learned, he said, in whatsoever state I am, therewith to be content. King, in his sermons, talks about God, the belief in God. We as Unitarians have so many different feelings and thoughts about what God is, and even if God exists, what is that? That's why it's so beautiful to be a Unitarian. There are so many paths and ways of being. And we, like others, walk this world having to face difficulties. So how would it be if we balanced those? We balance the despair and we balance the hope. Maria Coleman, who is an author, a writer, she talks about hope in the following context. We hope, we despair, we hope, we despair. She talks about it almost being a bipolar system. We can't have one without the other. When we started our service today, I said, well, what do the Buddhists have to say about hope? Seeing as we are sending our blessings out to them in the next few days. I'm going to read you two statements and see how they land with you. They're both by a Buddhist. Hope is important because it can make the present moment less difficult to bear. If we believe that tomorrow will be better, we can bear a hardship today. The other one, hope becomes a kind of obstacle. You can refrain from hoping, you can bring yourself entirely into the present moment and discover the joy that is already there. Work that out. And they were said by the same person. Thich Nhat Hanh. But are they so different? I think that hope that sometimes that we have that's outside of ourselves, they call it the craving for something and fixation, is so empty. I hope that Arsenal are going to beat Manchester United this afternoon. I won't be completely crushed, but I'll be slightly disturbed for an hour or so afterwards. I don't have any way of dictating the outcome. I can hope and push them down the pitch. So we've all had that. I know so many people in here who are football fans, and they go with that infinite sense of hope that they're going to win this time. And sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. They did yesterday. That was Brighton. So many of us have been in that space of longing to get out of the situation we were in. Want to make more money, pay a mortgage off, fly across to a distant land, and we see something shiny, something, oh yeah, that's the answer. We grab the shiny thing, and in a few moments, the shiny thing either disintegrates or disappears. That's that hope outside of yourself. And then maybe we have a kind of experience through that. Maybe I won't do that again. So what can the Buddhists teach us about hope if we've got those conflicting statements? I think it's about that desire to be free from suffering, but not just for ourselves, but for others. And we can't do that on our own. We definitely can't do it on our own. There we go, been told by the phone. As Unitarians, we may not believe in a purposeful God, but I think our belief is rooted in the oneness of God, whatever that happens to be for each of us. We seek that on our Sunday services, we seek it through the teachings, and we seek it through our community. And that's very similar to Buddhism. We don't have a God that goes, it's all going to be fine. But we do have an internal desire and drive for social justice, for equality, for watering the seeds equally, to create a more just world. I don't think any of us are completely enlightened yet. And maybe if we were, the need for hope would no longer be. So we hold the mess, the messiness of our own lives, the messiness of our political situations, the natural disasters. And in the other hand, we look for those small fragments of hope. In his final speech, Martin Luther King took a long view of hope. He talks about being to the mountaintop, wanting to live a long life. He had a vision of the promised land, knowing that he may not get there with everybody. He says we must keep alive hope, not because we need illusions to comfort us in this difficult world, but because separation and cruelty are the illusion, and we need to be awake to them. So I leave you with this statement, I guess, from Victoria Safford, who is a Unitarian minister in America. And for me, it sort of sums up how we can live with that finite disappointment, but the infinite desire of hope. She says, our mission is to plant ourselves at the gates of hope, not the prudent gates of optimism, which are somewhat narrower, nor the stalwart, boring gates of common sense, nor the strident gates of self-righteousness, which creak on shrill and angry hinges, nor the cheerful, flimsy garden gate of everything is going to be all right. Our mission is to plant ourselves at the gates of hope, the infinite hope with the finite disappointment. Amen, and blessed be. We sing our last hymn this morning, 208 in the Purple Book. This is one we don't sing very often. So Stuart's going to give us some instruction.
If you look at the pages for 208 and find it, I'll just give you an idea how it works so you don't get too much lost. Because the search is to find yourself in a holy place, and if you get lost on the way, you can't be so much satisfaction. So you'll see from the page, left-hand page, it says chorus, it's number 208 in the Purple Book. Chorus comes at the beginning, it comes between each of the 3 verses, and then at the end after the 3rd verse. So we get to see the chorus 4 times. The verses you'll see start on page 2, which will fit the bottom of page 1. When you get to the 3rd line of text on page 2, you'll see the beginning of the music stage, the squiggle there. That tells you to stop singing for a minute, or a rest in the musical sense. And so the timing stops for a moment there. Then you finally declare your imminent arrival to the holy place. There, that heart is in the holy place. Got it? Then the final gesture is to repeat when our heart is in a holy place, which is the word coda. Coda comes from the word like tail, the tail end of something. And you'll see on page 1 at the bottom it says last time, which is kind 4, the chorus, last time coda. Can you see all this? So that's the way it goes.
We'll try.
And to add to all of this, it starts with a 4-line introduction. So I want to play quite a bit so you get used to it. And then I'll give you an offer to sing. It's quite a fun tune, but sort of slightly Brazilian, political-ish rhythm, which I always thought we'd start happening, but I'm not sure that happens in these Unitarian churches. So it could be a capping song.
We're going to give it a go.
This is the introduction, then you'll follow it through, and after the chorus comes in, the introduction.
Thanks, everybody. That was quite fun. I didn't know what I was doing, actually. I sort of lost it slightly when we got into this is a pause and a rest. I was like, when the candle dims, the wax almost spent, the light turns amber like a sunset. Still, it does provide light and provides heat. Still, it can kindle a new flame and pass its glow on and contribute to the new illumination. When sunsets turn to new days, when seasons transforms all, when the candle dims, all is not lost. Hope continues uncertain and true, like candlelight, ready to spark again. All is not lost. Amen.